Hello, everyone. This is Shawn from the Never Heard of It podcast, and I'm joined today, as always, by my main man,
Craig Moore.
That's right, and this is our show where we talk about the movies that fell through all of our cracks, but mostly ours. And Craig, I think we got an interesting movie to go over today. What do you think?
We have quite a movie on our hands today, Shawn. I agree with you. I didn't see this one coming.
You sure didn't. And if you want to suggest some movies that we certainly won't see coming, why don't you find us online at Twitter? We are at Never Podcast. So you can look us up on our very own spiffy website, which is at Never Heard Podcast. We're on Facebook. We are now on Instagram. A lot of fun stuff going on there. YouTube, where else are we? We're pretty much everywhere.
We're everywhere. Pinterest, Snapchat.
None of those.
Grindr.
We're working our way up to Grindr. As always, thanks for listening. If you want to subscribe, we're on iTunes. That'd be appreciated. You can always leave a review there as well. So without further ado, let's talk about The Inside Man. There's not a lot of info about this movie. We should say that right up front. But it is on Amazon Prime, streaming right now. And this is a 1984 movie that I will read the synopsis today from Rotten Tomatoes. The internationally produced The Inside Man was inspired by a true story. In 1981, a Soviet submarine ran aground on the coast of Sweden. The sub was carrying a hush-hush laser search device, which promptly vanished. In this 1984 recreation of the incident, Dennis Hopper is cast as a CIA agent assigned to track down the missing laser. Aided by young assistant Gösta Ekman Jr., Hopper finds himself in a life-and-death struggle with a variety of foreign agents, each with his own agenda. Hardy Kruger co-stars in this rugged adventure yarn. I don't want to throw him under the bus, but Hal Erickson wrote this. I don't know if he works for Rotten Tomatoes. I think he watched a different movie.
No, that may have been one of the earlier cuts before Dennis Hopper asked them to minimize his role and let the other actors shine, maybe. That's pretty funny. I mean,
right.
Again, we do kind of have a movie this time that's, I wouldn't say disingenuous when it comes to how they advertise it. I mean, it's pretty much Dennis Hopper on the front, and he does have a pretty major role. But it's not about Dennis Hopper in a life and death struggle at all.
Nor is it really about Hardy Kruger as well.
And who was Hardy Kruger?
Hardy Kruger played Mr. Mandel.
Okay.
Mandel.
Yeah, no, it's not. Yeah. That's interesting. They sort of don't mention at all the actual main character, who's this kid from the Marines. But anyway, we can get into all that.
We will get into all of that. And if you go looking up The Inside Man on IMDb, it's kind of interesting because it points you to the alternate title of this, which I guess is the Swedish title, which is, of course, this is how you always called it, Craig, was Slagskampen.
Yeah, that's the correct title.
So, right. So it's not even really referred to as The Inside Man on the Internet Movie Database, which is kind of crazy. The movie was directed by Tom Clegg, who is a British gentleman who appears to have a ton of TV movie credits. And it was adapted from the book by Harry Kuhlman by screenwriter Alan Plater. And I mention him mainly because any guess as to how many credits he has as a writer, Craig? And he's not with us anymore, so rest in peace. But this is amazing.
I mean, is it just this one?
It is not just this one.
Okay.
Despite what you might think. 82 credits listed on IMDb as a writer. And this dude has been at it, or was at it, for a very long time. And a very fruitful career, it appears to be.
Indeed. And honestly, as we'll get into during the conversation, I can understand why he probably has that many credits.
The movie does star Dennis Hopper and Hardy Kruger, kind of in supporting roles. Gösta Ekman, and again, pronunciation, forgive us, plays Stig Larsson.
Yeah.
And I said Stieg.
Yeah, Stig Larsson, right?
Yeah.
Right.
The reason I said Stieg Larsson is because that's the guy that wrote the Girl with the Dragon Tattoo series.
Yes.
And immediately when I saw his name, I was like, wait, I know that name. But this is...
that's what I kept thinking. Yeah. And it's basically the John Smith of Sweden.
It must be, right? And also features, I believe they credit him as Cory Mulder, Cory, in the movie itself. On IMDb, it's Kare Mulder. He played Thomas Colleen, which is sort of the main character in this movie. And I don't know, if I'm going to write the summary for this movie, it would be that a laser goes missing from a submarine. The guy that made the laser, his factory gets blown up after the laser is stolen. Detective Stig Larsson thinks that it was an inside job. So he then recruits Corey Mulder, Thomas Colleen, who is like a Swedish Marine, basically, to go work for this man that invented this laser as his driver to try and get information about who in that company stole it. Because he has reasons to believe that perhaps Mr. Mandel, played by Hardy Kruger, did it himself.
That would be closer.
Now, that's closer. The Dennis Hopper of it all is still a little confusing to me, because he is very clearly an American in Sweden, surrounded by Swedes. And there is a line that I wrote down very early on where he explains his relationship, that Mr. Mandel has the brains, I write the brief. At least that's what I wrote down. I think this was before I turned the subtitles on. I highly recommend doing that if you're watching it on Amazon. This is not the best sounding movie, period. I kind of thought a lot was ADR up front, although I'm not sure that that's the case in hindsight. But this subtitles will help you.
Yes.
And so, yeah, I think Hopper is somewhat of a liaison for the American government who helped fund the development of this laser, because keep in mind, we're right in the middle of the Cold War, the height of the arms race between the U.S. and the Soviet Union. Clearly, they want to militarize this laser, and they want to have it before the Russians do. Is that more or less it?
Sounds like the gist of it.
Right. And as we mentioned in the last episode, the reason I got excited about this, and literally this was just a stumble upon while looking through Amazon. There's a poster that's pretty amazing, and we'll post that as well. But it's very cool artwork that totally looks like a submarine movie. It looks like 100% James Bond, Cold War. Clearly this is probably B-level thriller, spy thriller, submarine movie. And that's why I was excited to watch this. Boy, there's no submarines in this movie, except for in that very opening. And I don't know about you, Craig, but like within 5 minutes, this movie's like, oh boy, like we're in trouble here. That opening is it's like a photo montage, black and white photos of submarines with some of the worst voiceover narration I've heard. And it's not because it's like written poorly or anything. It's just the way it's delivered sounds totally like it's some like corporate film or like those like educational driver's ed movies. I don't know. I will say right up front, I kind of crossed over into liking quite a bit about this movie. And I definitely had to get over the fact that this is not a submarine movie. This is not a shoot 'em up. This is not Commando, or Predator or anything like those sort of 80s Rambo action spectacle movies. There's barely, like 3 gunshots in the entire movie. So it failed to deliver on a lot of the 80s tropes that I was expecting, but I did kind of come to like it. But what about you? Were you mad at me about like 10 minutes into this movie? Because I got worried that, oh man, this is going to be a real chore to
I
get
was
through.
hoping for something that was a little more like the 80s action movies, which were low budget, but this feels even lower budget than that. Like this really feels like, I mean, you have that photo montage at the beginning of submarines and a voiceover explaining things about how a sub ran aground. Not uninteresting, but you do kind of feel like, in different hands, this would have a little more gravity and a little more thrust to it. Maybe
it's not very thrilling.
It's not very thrilling.
Right, I've seen reviews just like, well, it's a thriller without the thrill. And I think that's somewhat fair.
Well, and I think that's where we get. That first scene is clearly trying to explain all this stuff that I'm not even 100% sure we needed to know.
I didn't follow any of it. I'll be honest with you. I still it just glazed over me.
It was an information dump.
Yeah,
I mean,
really
there was nothing really interesting about it. People were talking. People were saying lines. And this is one of those things that we're sort of taught at screenwriting school to cut this kind of stuff out, where people are saying things to each other that everyone already knows that they know. Like that's the cheapest stuff to try and get across to the audience by having two characters tell each other things they already know.
I think a lot of that stuff actually would have worked better just as a title card. Like if I were reading it, I would have
Yeah.
retained it more, I think,
Well,
because I was so distracted by the delivery.
Well, and it's a little bizarre too, just in general, because so in that opening bit, they explain all this stuff, and they're going to use the laser to find a submarine. And then the next time you see a laser used, it blows everything up. And then later on, it's explained lasers are important because they can transfer energy to places that don't have ready sources of energy.
Right. You know what else they can do is play DVDs and Blu-rays.
Yeah, exactly. I mean,
these lasers can do it all.
The movie is very in love with lasers, which is beautifully 80s. I love that part of it. But it did, after a while, it was like, well, what? Yeah, what? Why do we keep re-explaining things and talking about this laser in different, for having different purposes? It was chasing that stuff around a little bit. But yeah, it felt like a very, very low budget action movie, to the point where the thing I started kind of imagining was that someone, would take rehearsal footage from a big budget action movie. And it's almost just choreography. It's like, here are the stand-ins doing the scene, but because the VHS look of it, clearly it had been taken from a VHS tape, and it's terrible interlacing. It's a really bad presentation.
Not a good transfer.
And so I started kind of thinking it like that. Like this is everybody doing it at about 50%. And somewhere it's the same movie, because the plot's really not bad. You could really there's enough intrigue there, and if they had plenty of money behind it, it would probably be a very different experience. So
I think you're probably right. I suspect there's some phoning it in on the part of Hopper and Hardy Kruger. The only thing I could find about this movie, really, any background info whatsoever, this doesn't even have a Wikipedia page, right?
Yeah.
Was in an IMDb user review. And somebody, here, I'll just read it. It says, a rare Swedish outing for the late Dennis Hopper during his European wanderings after cleaning up his act, but before being welcomed back into the Hollywood mainstream. That's it. And so, because, it's a weird thing to figure out. You've got a movie in Sweden, one American actor. The whole movie's in English. And it's just, I would love to know how this movie happened. I'm saying? Just why? How? Who put this together? Where? Was it just Hopper? I need to work. Get me in anything, so I don't go off and do drugs for the rest of
and that's probably
my
true.
life. And there's some of that, and obviously Blue Velvet wasn't long after this, but it's definitely, I forgot about that, and I don't know his backstory extremely well, but I think there were some very lean years for him as an actor.
I was thinking the same thing. Is that this is clearly a movie that maybe he isn't thrilled to be in, but he needed to do something. And I have to say, for that, having that perspective on it, I don't feel like he totally phoned it in. Like the scenes that he would be in wouldn't necessarily make sense, and the lines he had would kind of be like, oh, that must have been really hard to figure out how to deliver that. But
I think you do get a couple of those classic blow-ups from him, or whatever. There's one I wrote down where he's talking with Mandel, who again is the guy that developed the laser and had the company, and Hopper tells him, go to the cops, confess. Obviously, this is after discovering that I guess he staged this robbery himself. And Mandel says, I can't do that. And Dennis Hopper then says, then do the best alternative. Shut the fuck up.
Yeah.
And it's great. And then, he's got some line later on. He tells Colleen, when Colleen is trying to, the one character that kind of gets left out in the cold. And I thought maybe, really the most interesting thing in the movie to me was like, you couldn't even shit on the back of your own shoes.
Wow.
And I'm sure, he surely made that up himself, right?
I would guess. Guess.
Yeah, Hopper's like, no, I'm not saying that, but I got something better. And then that's what he throws out there. Well, maybe this is a good place to get into that Colleen character a little bit. I mean, I got to say, let's talk about some of the joys of this movie. Then I think one of the big ones for me was that introduction to his character. I mean, you first get, there's basically just, somebody flipping through still photos of him as the Larson character is explaining, yes, he was a soldier and blah, 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 blah. He was, a top-ranked amateur boxer or something like that. And, you meet this guy, and, I wrote down that he looks like if Dolph Lundgren and, Footloose era Kevin Bacon had a baby.
Yeah.
I mean, it feels like really good casting to me, actually, in the sense that you're putting a guy into a situation who can't be smart enough for his own good,
Yes.
He's not going to be the one... I think they're probably not even expecting him to ask any questions at all. He'll just go do this thing like he's a dumb animal,
right.
soldier, basically. And he's not that exactly, but he drives like a Pontiac Firebird hot rod, and he's there's a great scene where he just goes to McDonald's or whatever they call it in Sweden, but it is definitely McDonald's, and gets burgers and fries. I don't remember if it was here or not, but he literally helps an old lady across the road. I've never seen that in a movie before in my life.
That felt like a studio note, even though I don't feel like there was any studio involved.
I doubt it, for sure.
Can we make him immediately sympathetic? Well, what if he helps that old lady across the road?
Right. But he goes back to, it's either his place, I think, it's his place, right? And there's a girlfriend, and she's already in bed, basically naked. And, he's getting ready to come into bed. And he's telling her he got a new job, but, he doesn't quite know what he's doing. It's top secret. He's working for a guy, and, he's close to the boss. And she says, how close? And they start making out. And, he's fondling her breast. And then he says, this close. And, it's a lead into a sex scene that we don't really see. But I was just like, it's not that close. That's a weird thing.
Yeah, that's a weird way to get him to making out.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like it feels like one of those things that got lost in translation. That somebody just said no. He would say, "Well, not this close," and then make his move on the girl. But instead, he's just
and let's back up for a second.
Yeah,
because
sure.
When we first meet him, I don't know if I guess this is a good question for you. Were you confused by this scuba diving scene that we first saw him in?
God, yeah, I totally forgot about that. No clue what happened there. There was some sort of test. He is with another diver. There's a net. One of them gets caught in the net. One of them cuts the other person's tube.
Right.
He comes up, and then there's an explosion in the water.
Yeah, that's exactly it. So I'm watching this thing. So Larson has said he needs this kid. And then the next thing we see is this kid. He's clearly on a training maneuver. So it's exactly what you just said. Here are these two characters. They put on their scuba masks. They go in the water. So immediately, once they're in the water, you cannot tell either one of them apart.
Nope, not at all.
I was assuming Colleen is the first guy. So he's the first guy. He goes up to the net. He cuts the net. He gets his foot stuck in the net. And the other guy seems to be trying to get him out of it. And then he cuts the air tube on Colleen's scuba equipment. And then just puts a bomb next to him or something.
I had no
and swims away.
Clue, yeah.
Yeah, so I was like, oh my God, they're trying to kill him. And then I thought, oh well, wait a second, is this staged by Larson somehow? So then it'll seem like Colleen's dead, and that's how he's going to be an inside man because no one knows, or race his past or something. But then he just comes back to the boat, and he's like, we got to go because it's going to explode.
Right.
And then they drive away, and I'm like, and so then I was like, okay, well, so it was just a test. It was just that you expect the unexpected.
But what happened to the other scuba diver, right?
Well, but the other scuba diver was the guy who did it. And he just went and got back in the boat.
He was already in the boat? Okay.
Yeah, he was just in the boat waiting.
I missed that.
So I thought, oh, this is a training exercise. And this is how hardcore these guys have to be. And then the scene after that, all of our guys are naked in a sauna.
Yep. Forgot about that.
Our boy Colleen is pissed off, and he punches one of them, and that's how he gets kicked out of the Marines. And I was very lost in any of that.
Some towel whipping.
Like, yeah, like it just needed like some clarification there would have made everything great, because it seemed like a good sequence, but I just couldn't tell anything that was happening.
Yeah, and in some ways, even if that was a test, why? There was no situation that he was going to be in as the driver for this dude, where they're basically just asking him to snoop around the house that Mandel lives in and find stuff.
Yeah, no.
That's pretty much the extent of it. Where would being able to scuba dive through nets and explosions come into play in that job description? I don't know.
So all of that was pretty bizarre. I don't remember what happens next.
Yeah, no, I don't know that it's necessarily that important, but I do think, again, the setup of that character totally feels like you're getting, this is your Jason Bourne guy. He's the guy that's going to be pulling the trigger on some bad dudes, and, he's going to satisfy that kind of action hero model. Mm-hmm. And he doesn't, and that's actually, I think we should just skip ahead and just talk about it in general. That's what I liked about the movie, is that the basic premise of you put a guy in place to work undercover, and he's not good at it, and he gets outed. Yeah. And it does somewhat ruin what they were hoping to do. But he's not, and he's left out in the cold by all parties involved. Mm-hmm. I thought that was kind of cool. And that the movie then kind of in that third act moves on to he's sort of operating on his own. And trying to still, because he's just left with so many questions. His apartment gets ransacked. He's got people yelling at him because he screwed this thing up. He got outed trying to take pictures. That's what sort of kicked me over to the side of liking the general concept of this movie. And I kind of liked that actor, that Corey Mulder guy. I mean, it just, he was sort of like the perfect naive guy to be in that situation. And I did sort of have sympathy for him. You get this thing where he almost gets killed and the car goes into the lake or ocean or whatever it was.
Right.
Baxter's trying to kill him again.
Yeah, that wasn't bad. And Baxter was pretty good.
Yeah, I thought there was some
interesting,
decent performances there. I like the Larson guy. That
Sure.
Yeah, I thought he was pretty good.
Yeah.
I love that there's a shot of him picking his nose while he's on the phone.
Yes.
For some reason.
Realism.
We should go ahead and say, like, the whole thing ends up kind of being pointless because it's revealed that the laser doesn't work. Like, it burns out, the rod, whatever rod they're using for energy, burns out after a few hours or a day of usefulness.
Right.
So he was basically trying to keep the perception of its value high and sell it to the Russians at a very high cost before they figured out that it was actually worthless.
Right.
How did that leave you? Because on one hand, it's kind of cool. And on the other hand, I'm just like, like this whole thing meant nothing.
Well, yeah. I mean, it's true. And I think it may be specific to this movie and how I feel by the time that's revealed. Mm-hmm. Like, by the time that's revealed, I think, oh, well, that's interesting. Because I kind of don't want to watch a chase for this laser anymore.
Right.
I don't really care, and I've kind of lost the thread a little bit at some point. Larson's bothering Mandel and those guys at a hockey game, while Colleen is chasing people down as Firebird, and I don't even like, I didn't even really, and I probably just missed it because I probably tuned it out or something, but I kind of lost the idea of, like, is there a clock people are trying to beat? Is there something they have to stop by a certain time, or I kind of gave up on thinking about that, and I just figured, well, I'll just watch and see what happens. And so when they revealed, hey, yeah, we know we're doing this, this thing is broken, and we're going to sell it to the Russians, and somehow we don't think that'll ever come back on us.
And I still don't quite get Dennis Hopper's involvement in all of that. Like, why is he still like, he knows exactly what happened.
Yeah.
And what went on. Like, is he trying to get a percentage of that sale to pay back the U.S. government? Or I don't know.
That didn't bother me mainly because I always felt like his involvement was that this technology was really important, and so as an American, he wants to be in bed with the Swedes.
Right.
And who doesn't, really?
Yeah.
So that's all I was thinking, is like he's just going to be a close ally because they have this technology and the Russians don't.
Yeah. Well, let's talk for a second about that very last shot of the movie, because it does end on the Colleen character, which I think is a wise choice, but, you know, he comes back downstairs from his apartment. His girlfriend is in the shower, and they have a little playful thing. He's going to go work out at the gym. Mm-hmm. And he gets in he's got a new, like, vintage convertible Corvette. I don't know what the dude is doing for money. I have no clue, like, how he's getting these cars.
Yeah.
He heads out. There's, like, totally happy music. I think there was an actual song written for the movie called The Inside Man, if I'm not mistaken, during that part.
There was,
yeah,
Shawn.
totally
Yes,
a great 80s song. He pulls off. He is clearly being followed by a Mercedes that was parked a few cars back that pulls out behind him, and then you freeze frame.
Right.
And I
That's
don't.
your favorite ending. Freeze
I
frame,
do. I
right?
love a freeze frame, but I don't know what to like. I don't have any guesses whatsoever who's in that Mercedes.
No.
Like it doesn't.
Yeah, like why is that even happening? Like,
yeah, I can't make an educated guess. Like I really can't. You know. It felt like his involvement was done. His job was over, and he should have just gone back to his life. Like there's no way they would use him again.
What would
an
it
undercover
even
guy
mean? Yeah. I mean, it feels like that's probably what it's supposed to mean.
I guess.
It's
Yeah.
like they're still going to keep watching him because they might want him to do another thing. But you do kind of wonder, why would you want him to do another thing? He wasn't that good at doing it the first time.
No.
Like why would he be the guy that you'd want to do it? Besides the fact that he certainly showed persistence. It's not like he was worthless, but yeah, and then coupled with the song being so peppy and upbeat, it was a little confusing, that last shot.
It definitely was. But I will say, like, again, on the whole, I kind of, I sort of crossed over to enjoying this thing, even though, look, I don't think there's any, like, fooling anybody that this is any sort of vital piece of cinema. But I was left kind of thinking about the possibility of telling one of these, like, undercover stories. Like, even just imagining if something like The Departed, if DiCaprio had been busted, like, halfway through the movie, like, how different that would look, and what that would mean and how that would change. I'm not sure. I feel like somebody else has probably done that in a more sort of involved situation where it's not kind of, like it is here, where you don't quite see how it all plays out and falls down. I don't know. There's something to that thread, I think. It's definitely a twist on that template, I think, of the undercover cop or the informant or the mole or the inside man, basically. Yes. So I don't know. It was an interesting experience.
It was.
There's a good reason maybe why this is a forgotten movie of the 80s.
Yeah. Well, I was going to say, because of that, what you get from these kind of movies is you'll get those kind of inspired moments of insanity or just bizarro world type stuff. For me, it seemed like he went to have a romantic dinner with a woman who seemed old enough to be his mother. Yep. And they were eating crawfish. Yep. I thought this is one of the least romantic dinners. Like it's like what is it? Because she goes and asks him out, and I wrote down, is that his mom? And she's like...
Yeah, she was the woman that worked as, like, the secretary for Mr. Mandela, right. Therese.
But I had no idea there was, like, heat between them.
No, and then his girlfriend comes into that scene at the bar and sees him with it, and she's like, well, did you tell her about your herpes? And then just walks off, like, no big deal. And then you see her later naked in the shower, and they're living together, or at least sleeping together.
It's like Sweden is a swinging town, man.
I guess so.
But she says, do you like crayfish? Do you like crayfish? He's like, sure. And then it's just like cut to close up of just crayfish, and just open it up, eating that stuff. And really bizarre. The other bit I really liked in the edit was, and again, I have no idea what was going on or why anything was happening, but he was somewhere, and the girlfriend drives up in his Firebird and gets out.
Mm-hmm. It was like a parking garage, wasn't it?
I thought it was like a road. I thought it was like under a bridge or something.
Yeah.
And he says, I missed you. She says, me or the car? Then it cuts to the other car that he's sort of been pursuing, driving away, and then it cuts back to his car, and she's standing by herself on the road, and his car is peeling out and taking off after it. And I couldn't stop laughing after that one. I just loved that. I missed you. Me or the car?
I'm out of here.
Oh, man.
Yeah.
That was
Interesting
beautiful.
relationship there. Yeah, at one point, I think after his apartment has been ransacked and he got beat up, he goes to her, like falls into her apartment, and she helps, like, bandage him back up or whatever. And he's like, I need the keys to your car. And she's like, why? And he's like, because he recognized the Pontiac.
Yeah.
And like the way he says Pontiac, it's like, first of all, just hearing that, it sounds weird and funny in 2016. But he's adamant. He was working hard. One of the other things that really made me laugh, and this is so stupid, but the dogs in the movie, the Dobermans that Mr. Mandel has, it's just like obviously pumped in sound effects of like a constantly growling dog.
Yeah.
But one of them's name is Jim. I've never in my life heard anybody name a dog Jim. If I'm wrong, please tell me. But God, I was like, that is great.
That's
Calm
beautiful.
down. Easy, Jim. Easy. Maybe in Sweden that is like a good dog name. Because
Oh, yeah. No, it's beautiful.
loved it.
Especially for a fierce guard dog. But the other bit that I really enjoyed, I feel like it was way too short, was when they had to teach Colleen how to use a computer and what computers do.
Great. Yeah.
So that he can go load some stuff on a disk.
Stores
And,
information on
some
a
of that
disc
dialogue
like
is
this.
beautiful.
Yeah, it's just a huge floppy disk. I think there's like an Apple IIe or something in there. At
Oh,
one point.
yeah.
Yeah, some nice throwback stuff there. One question for you. I don't want to get caught up in this, but there's kind of a cool scene where there's a man clearly on the roof of something, looking through the sniper rifle scope, shoots who I later learned was Bloom, the character. Who
Yeah,
was
I had no idea what they was doing there.
the original driver for Mandel was fired.
Oh, that was him.
Yes.
Why did they kill him?
I don't know.
Because they already like put him away on drug charges. Like he was fired.
They got him fired. They planted drugs in his place so that they could then put in Colleen to replace him and be their mole.
Right.
But yeah, then somebody killed him.
Yeah, I didn't get that scene at all. But anyway,
Maybe
okay,
I think maybe it was Baxter, but I'm still not sure why Baxter.
it was certainly
would-
Baxter shooting. Yeah.
Yeah, but why? I don't know. Okay. Well,
Don't know.
I'll just make sure I didn't miss anything.
But and that's the thing. Like that was one of those moments that actually had a really good shot.
Yeah, like that's a total
and I
thriller
felt like,
movie.
man, yeah, like there's really some good potential here, and it was mainly. I mean, there were several good things in the sequence, but I love the way it ended, where he walks out of this church from where he just shot this guy, and he kind of just walks past this, like, I don't know, was it a group of people who had just gotten married or something?
Yeah, they were
Kinda
doing the
walks between
photos.
them and the photographer, and like, yeah, I don't know.
Well, I look forward to your fan edit. I can't wait to
it's
see
coming.
how many submarines you're able to get in there.
Oh, there's gonna be a lot of submarines,
Yeah, at least a minimum of 12, I think.
and Dennis Hopper is gonna be on every single one of them.
Well, I will say, speaking of Hopper, one thing I got excited about, and I'm going to thank this movie if it pans out. I did see, just, again, trying to scour for information for this movie. There apparently is a DVD release that has this movie, The Inside Man, and a Dennis Hopper directed film called Out of the Blue, which that had also slipped my radar, but that looks really, really good. I watched the trailer for that. It's got Linda Manns of Days of Heaven fame, which, I've only seen her in, two things, period. Man, that looks awesome. I think Amazon's got it for like $5, Prime shipping included. So I might actually splurge for that. And then, if you ever come over to my house, if you're listening to this and you want to sit down and watch The Inside Man, we can throw it up on DVD. We'll have a good time. We'll get some popcorn.
Make it happen.
Some Swedish Fish. I think that would be good to have with
apropos.
it. And we'll have a good time. Last thing I'll say about this movie, Hardy Kruger was not necessarily a name I knew. And again, he plays the Mr. Mandel character, the scientist who invented this laser. He was born in 1928. He's still kicking, apparently, so good on him. And he was a member of the Hitler Youth. He was 13, and he joined the SS Army. And then somehow, look, that happened, obviously. I don't know. I don't think he had any allegiance to that particular movement. Later went on to be in, he was in Barry Lyndon. He's in Hatari with John Wayne. He was in Flight of the Phoenix, with Jimmy Stewart. And Sundays, and I think it's Cybele. I can never pronounce that correctly. I'm sure it's something else. Interesting, he got nominated for a Golden Globe for supporting actor for Flight of the Phoenix. I found 6 sites that all said that he refused the nomination. None of them said why. Yeah, no clue. In 1965, weird. I couldn't think of anything else. Maybe, sometimes that happens at a protest over something, or, maybe there's some German written biography about the guy floating around that we could read through a translation and find out. In Barry Lyndon, he played Captain Pottsdorf, who I vaguely remember. It's been a couple years since I've watched that. But,
yeah, I got to see that again.
Yeah, pretty awesome. So now I think we learned a few things.
I think we have.
About Sweden
as individuals.
Yes, and actors and whatever Slagskampen means.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd say check this out if you're adventurous or if you're just floating around Amazon, want to watch something fun from the 80s.
Or if you love Dennis Hopper.
Yeah, if you love Dennis Hopper, he'll definitely satisfy a few of those moments for you. Mm-hmm. And he's not in it long enough to really annoy you, so there you go.
Yeah.
There you go.
Hey, Shawn, let's talk about next time. So, Shawn, I have a list of movies here.
All right. I like lists. I like movies.
We're going to see what happens. Now, there are several on here that I think you probably have heard of. And I'm going to start with one that I'm almost positive you have to have heard of.
Okay. I would never make that assumption, but you go ahead.
I hear you. I mean, it's really not an obscure movie, although I don't think people talk about it much anymore. Have you heard of the movie Max Dugan Returns?
Honestly, no.
Really?
Yeah. Is that bad? Did I just commit a major movie faux pas?
It's surprising. Here's the thing. It's from the early 80s.
That's okay. I like having an 80s double feature here.
I heard so much about it when I was a kid, and I never saw it. Max Dugan Returns stars Jason Robards, Donald Sutherland, Matthew Broderick.
I like all those people.
And Marsha Mason in Neil Simon's Max Dugan Returns.
I like Neil Simon. Let's watch this. Where can we sit down and check that out?
So you're going to find that on Netflix.
Great.
If you've already seen it, watch it again. Revisit this classic that I've never seen and Harwell has never, ever heard of in his life.
So you can count on me, dude.
And then we'll meet back next week and we'll all watch Project X together.
Oh, great. As always, find us on the internets and come say hello and keep the suggestions coming. We'll jump back on a couple of those very, very soon. Some of you guys are so good that you suggested things that we can't possibly find.
Yeah.
Unless we go buy a DVD from Zimbabwe.
That guy down the street, yeah.
We appreciate that, but if you're going to do that and you can also throw us a link to where we can get this movie, that would help too. So,
Indeed.
But thanks so much, obviously, and
very
everybody,
much.
Be good to each other, right?
Hugs.
Yeah, it's been a crazy month. So
that's true.
All right, next time.
Next time.